Welcome everyone to today's Keptn user group. My name is Andi Grabner, a DevOps activist at Dynatrace and a DevRel for Keptn. But more important today is my guest, Mike Kobusch. Hi, Mike. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. We're doing this every month where we invite a Keptn user to our user group meetings, really showing how they get value out of Keptn. And I know we will see a live demo from you. We hear some background from you, who you are, how you got kind of introduced to the Keptn project, and how you're using it in your day-to-day life. Mike, I would like to ask you to maybe slide forward, because for those folks that have kind of missed what we've been doing already in the past, exactly one slide forward would be great.
Sure. Yep.
Perfect. A couple of weeks ago, we did a 10-minute walkthrough where you kind of showed me through how you're using Keptn or then Cloud Automation already, which is the managed version from Dynatrace, on how you are using it to automate your performance analysis. So folks, if you're interested in a very short 10-minute video, there is just go to the YouTube channel and check it out. Really cool. But this video really triggered me wanting to know more and wanting to know, how did you end up there? And this is where I think, Mike, I know we have a couple of slides, but then really kind of the background and the demo. But what you showed there, as you just pointed out, right? You built an SLO dashboard that really included all the metrics. And then if you do, I think, one more click, then we are done with the animation. Then I think I'm shutting up and passing it over to you. But then Keptn really automated the analysis. So
correct.
Maybe quickly pass it over to you, because this is also what you said. Keptn saves you hours. How do you work with it right now?
Yeah, Keptn saves me hours. So as performance engineers, we know that after we run our scripts, there's thousands and thousands of data points to look at, and charts and graphs, and each script could take anywhere from a half hour to an hour to analyze, and that all takes time. But with Keptn and Cloud Automation, we can take that analysis down to just seconds. And then we can provide project teams, a heat map like we have here, showing them their just how their runs look, in a color schemed heat map. So if somebody opens this and they see a lot of greens, they're gonna say, "Oh, great, this release is good," right? If they see a lot of reds or yellows, they're going to say, "Oh, wait a second, we may need to take a step back." So through our dashboards and knowledge of KPIs and knowledge of Dynatrace and our applications, we can build out this heat map and make things a lot quicker for us in the long run. So this is just a sample dashboard that I've built out, just from years of knowledge and just kind of, knowing how Dynatrace works and how Dynatrace looks at our application. We can kind of build out these dashboards with all our KPIs and just let Dynatrace and Keptn do the work for us instead of us manually going out there and doing all the work. So this really is going to speed up time and the way we as performance engineers start analyzing data in the future, hopefully. And this is just another sample of my dashboard. So this is just, kind of what a dashboard inside the tile looks like. We have a header there that, just says, okay, pass if I'm, greater or less than or equal or less than 5.9. And we'll just go through this a little bit later. We can weight different tiles on how important they are to our data analysis. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So who I am, like Andy said, I'm Mike Kobusch. So I don't really have a technical background. So I have a degree in biology and a minor in chemistry. So I started out of college. I started with a company doing manual testing, and we would take 3 to 5 months manually testing an application for just one release. And it took 6 or 7 of us to do that. And I thought, man, this is crazy. So I started getting into automation. So I brought automation into this company, and I automated all these test scripts. And I got testing time down to like just 2 weeks for one person. I was like, well, that's a lot better, right? I mean, now I have more time to do stuff. So I kind of got bored with kind of the automation stuff. So I had a supervisor come approach me and said, "Hey, would you like to be a performance engineer?" I said, "Well, yeah, that sounds cool." So about 12 years ago, I started as a performance engineer, and just learning. I got a mentor and just started working with him, and just started learning every day. I would learn and learn and learn, and until I became just comfortable to go off on my own. So I moved to the company that I'm at now, and I'm doing performance engineering for them. But I'm still learning every day. And data analysis is the longest part of all of this. Scripting is pretty easy, gathering requirements pretty easy, right? But just the data analysis, it takes a lot of time. And I think if we could automate that process, we're going to have more time to do other stuff like other technologies and just kind of grow this industry. We started, Andy and I started with Keptn 0.7.3. So I heard about Keptn a couple of years ago at Perform, and I was thinking, man, this could really help. This could really help me with my data analysis, because I'm testing, I think at this company, I have about 80 applications that I test. And there is no way if I'm testing 5 or 6 at one time that I can do a data analysis for them, like to the quality that I expect that I should be able to do it for them. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking, man, Keptn could really, really help us. So we started with Keptn 0.7.3. I got on a call with Andi one day and a couple other people. But then to install Keptn, wasn't an easy process, right? So I had to get multiple teams like security and network and middleware together. I'm not technical, so I had to get somebody here to install Keptn, and we went through this process, and it probably took us 2.5 hours to get Keptn installed. And when that was done, I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way I could have done that on my own. And probably me, like a lot of you, I don't have access to all the things that I need just due to security, right? Security reasons. So you have to get a lot of people together to get Keptn going. But once we got it going, it was good. I had to start building out dashboards and stuff. So got that going. It was a slow process, but hey, Keptn is up and going. So here we are, and we're off and running. And I think Andi kind of saw like, oh my gosh, I think there's probably a better way to do this, right? I mean, each company can't spend 2.5 hours and take 3 or 4 teams to get this installed. So I think he contacted me a couple of weeks later and said, you know what, we're working on this Dynatrace cloud automation preview. It's going to make things a lot easier for companies to install. I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. So then they got this cloud automation going, and Andi sends me an email and says, okay, I have cloud automation. Here's the instructions to install it. I'm going to contact you in 30 minutes, and I'll see how it went and see how you're doing. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, wait a second. I don't think I'm going to be able to do this in 30 minutes because it took us 2.5 hours and like 5 people last time. So I opened up his email, started reading through it, and I think in probably 10 minutes, I had cloud automation up and running on my system, and I had an eval going even before he contacted me. So that's just, cloud automation makes things so much easier for setup, and now Dynatrace is hosting it, so I don't have to worry about where storage is and how to keep upgrading it, because now Dynatrace is going to do everything for us.
Hey,
so, yeah. maybe
Mike, maybe just to chime in, thanks first of all for all the nice words. I want to just recap for people. Again, Keptn, right? The reason why it is challenging for some organizations because Keptn runs on a Kubernetes cluster. That means depending on who you are as an organization, how easy or tough it is for you to get a Kubernetes cluster where you can install software, whatever security restrictions you have. It can be a matter of minutes, but it can be a matter of hours or even days sometimes to get software installed. Right. And this is not, I would say, necessarily just a Keptn issue. It's in general if you install software on premise. And we as Dynatrace, who are heavily involved in pushing Keptn open source further, we then also said, well, what can we do to our Dynatrace customer base to provide Keptn capabilities to them without having to go through the pain of running software, because we provide Dynatrace as a service. So that's why the cloud automation preview was a great way for us to say, we host this for you, and then you can just enjoy the capabilities of Keptn. And it was really a pleasure having you on that initial preview, and now really using it on day-to-day basis.
It was great. It was great. And like I was getting ready to say, analysis time goes from hours to seconds. And I think I gave this kind of demo, Keptn Cloud Automation demo to my CTO. And I said, look, I usually spend hours doing this. Now it's seconds. So now I'm going to spend more time fishing instead of working. I don't know if he liked that idea or not. He kind of just chuckled, but I'm going to say he liked it, and I'm going to spend more time fishing. Yeah. So yeah, hey, let's just jump into a live demo and kind of see what it looks like on my side. Oh, sorry about that. Let me get move this thing out of the way here, and we'll go to cloud automation. So this is what Keptn looks like. So here's our heat map, and these are different releases that I've ran. So you can see, you can tell Keptn, or when you trigger an evaluation, you say, okay, I want this to be my July build or my August build. I've run them a couple times. So right now, you can see how this screen is refreshing. So just bear with us during this performance, because there is a new release of Keptn coming out. I think release 9.x, 9.1. I think it had been released, but I think then Dynatrace pulled it because there was a couple glitches in it that they really wanted to work out. So that's just a testament to Dynatrace and how they want just quality to be top notch every time. So yeah, so we have a little refresh issue here, but we'll work through it, and just bear with me when this thing starts refreshing. But anyway, so you can see I've had previous runs. So you can see down here at the bottom, it gives us a score, right? So I've got a score here. Let me get this off. So my first run, I had a score of 94. Let me get this off. Oh, I highlighted it, didn't want to. So you can see how our scores, I had a 73 score on this test run. So, hey, it turns yellow. It says, hey, warning, you may have a performance issue, right? So we can go back and kind of see what's happening. So in this run, I can see my CPU time kind of increased. So I went back to the project teams, and they said, yeah, we're doing something with how we're fetching data. So we expect CPU time to increase. So that's cool. So that was a really good catch by Keptn and Cloud Automation and my dashboards and KPIs and how I have it set up. So what I did here on this new test run, you could probably see it. Let's see what happens. So I have my pass criteria here as 1.8 CPU time. So after talking to the project teams, I kind of increased this. Did I increase it to 2.3 for my next run? So you can kind of keep up with baselines if you want to by changing your dashboards, and I'll show you how to do that here in a little bit. So this last test run passed. So now let's look at Dynatrace here in our dashboards. So here's a test run that I ran this morning just to get ready for this. So here's a dashboard that I have set up. So what I'm doing is I have some KPIs that I've set up for this. I have response times right here. These are for each of my test steps. So if you're familiar with maybe Loadrunner or probably even NeoLoad or JMeter, you have request attributes set up so Dynatrace can capture them. You call them test steps. I call them test steps. So these are each of my test steps, like logging into an application or clicking on search, or maybe clicking on a summary, or maybe doing a checkout, right? So those are my test steps. So each one of these tiles down here is a test step. And they have calculations built into them. So if I dig further into this tile, I can see, okay, this is like average response time. My SLI here is a response time for a search. So I say, okay, I want my passing criteria to be equal or less than 200 milliseconds. And I want you to warn me, I want you to calculate a warning score if it's equal or less than 300 seconds. And I've weighted this as a 5. So what that means is I'm saying, okay, cloud automation, Keptn, I like response times, right? So I want you to weight this at the highest, at 5, and calculate it based on that. And if we go back here, you can see that some of these scores, like CPU, I have a very low weight, so he's scoring these as a 2.5 passing. But if I weight it higher, each one of these is scored a lot higher. So a passing score is now for this test is a 12.5. So this is the way Keptn adds up and gives you a total result.
So also maybe
yeah,
maybe
so
just for those that have never seen this before, what we always do is we look at all the metrics, we call them SLI, service level indicators, that you put on the dashboard and that you also mark with this should be included in the evaluation. And then we always calculate a total score of 100. So by default, we treat every SLI equal. Everyone has the same weight of 1. But what you just did, you said, my response time is 5 times more important than the default, and therefore you can change the weight. So I think that's great, right? If it's more important for you, then put it in.
Exactly. So so let's look at this network IO time. So this is another KPI that I've built into my dashboard, and I use network IO time because I found out that network IO is kind of almost directly related to probably my database. So if I see network IO time increasing and failing, then I know something is probably going wrong with my database, or maybe there's just long processing times for some reason, and I can chart that here. So again, I can say, okay, my SLI here, I've named it network IO, and here's my passing score, my warning score, but I've only weighted this as a 2 because I don't want cloud automation and Keptn to say, okay, I'm just going to totally fail you because I'm weighting it as a 5. I say, oh, let's weight it as a 2 because it's kind of an important metric, but I don't want you to just totally fail my script if this is out of whack for some reason, right? So that's why I weighted it at 2. So you can weight them how you feel your KPIs are. So some people may say, okay, response time is probably not as important as memory if you're on a Java shop or something like that. Sorry, let's go back to my chart. I just want to mention one more thing about these charts. Go back to my test run here. So I have another tile here, and I'm using JVM max memory. So this is a good way. So not only can you analyze data and use KPIs like response times and CPU time and database time as a statement, right? You can use this as like an application configuration check, right? So I want to check that my max memory is where it should be, right? So I think we have about, I don't know, 6 gig on this, 6.6 or something gig on this JVM. But I want to say, okay, every time I run this script, make sure that my memory is greater than 5.5, right? So that way I know at least, hey, we have the memory that we're supposed to. And if it's less than 20% of my previous run, hey, warn me, because now I know that if this JVM spun up overnight, right, because we take them down, they spin up. If it didn't spin up correctly overnight and it used the default setting of, I think we had like 1 gig, which I've seen before, then hey, warn me that I'm not using my right settings, my correct settings in this script, right? So we can use this also as a configuration check, which is kind of cool.
That's actually, I think now, I mean, we talked about this when we were preparing for this, and I thought it was fascinating that you are really using some of these metrics as environment readiness checks, and you should almost consider in the future to maybe run 2 Keptn, let's say, evaluations once before you run the test to make sure your environment is properly configured. And if then Keptn says environment looks good, your JVM memory is good, there's no other ambient noise on the system, maybe some other traffic is running, And then based on that, you say, now I'm running, let's say, an hour-long test, because what if at the end you should not know by the end of the test that the memory was incorrectly set. You should do this before the test actually runs. You can even add this check before.
That's very true. So what I can do is here, so let's just look at Keptn and how it's configured here real quick. So what I have is projects, right? So kind of just default Dynatrace project. And then I have each of my applications here as a project. And then within these applications, I have these services, right? So each service is probably a test script within my application. And what he was just saying is what I could do is I could build an SBS service that has all my configuration checks, run that against Keptn. And then if I get a passing score down here, go ahead and kick off my scripts. So that's a really good idea.
And I want to add one more, Mike. I want to add one more quick thing, because you just brought up a good point. There's a big misconception in Keptn. We have the terminology of a project, of stages and services, which makes sense, right? In this case, you have an SBS project, you have a quality stage, a quality gate stage, and then you have services. But your services in this case are not necessarily microservices or applications. In your case, they're actually modeled against your tests, because you run test scripts, revenue search, education, right? While we call it a service, and the initial idea, the initial intention was that you are letting Keptn automate sequences for individual microservices, you're not constrained to a service. A service is just a configuration entity, and you can really then do things like what Mike is doing, analyzing the result of a particular test run. It's up to you what you do with it.
Right, exactly. Yep. So yeah, like you said, you can evaluate services in your production environment and QA environments, right? But so what I'm primarily using it for is my test runs, because that's where the time is spent, analyzing the data. So this is where I want to kind of just, speed up that process. And so we have an overview page here, right? So I can see like, oh my gosh, all my scripts are actually failing in QA, right? So I mean, this gives you a quick indicator of how your test runs are going. So it's a really good snapshot. Yeah, it's cool. And then we can click in here. We can get our heat map, and you can send this to project teams. You can see what's going on over time. There's a nice little dashboard link up here. So if something is wrong, you can just click on this, and it'll go right to that dashboard. This is not our time, is it?
It should be. I think the link should be exactly the time.
That's okay.
Yeah.
This is the time that I ran it. But anyway, so you can just get right to the dashboard. So I forgot to kind of mention this this kind of header up here. You can configure this differently. So we say, okay, I want it to pass if we're at 90%, or me at 70%, right? And then we have this compare feature, right? So we can compare results with the last passing test run. We can compare it with the last 2, 3, 4, 5 passing test runs. And that's where the compare function is kind of where I showed you my JVM memory, where if you're saying, okay, I want to be greater or less than or greater than 20%, right? So this is where it's going to compare to your previous test runs and say, okay, are we 3% worse, right? If so, fail us. So let's just see how easily it is to analyze a test run. So I ran this test run this morning. So usually my next steps are going to be, okay, so let's just dive into the data and start looking around, right? I'm going to look at response times. I'm going to look at network. I'm going to look at database times, yada, 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 right? And that all takes time. So let's just see how quickly we can actually evaluate this data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into this Windows PowerShell. So I've already authorized it today just because I didn't want anything to go wrong. So in Keptn, what you can do is you just click on this. It'll copy this authorization command, and you just paste it in here and authorize this Keptn so you can start triggering evaluations. So here's a Keptn trigger evaluation that I did. I don't know, when did I do this? On the 9th. So I've been on vacation, so I haven't done anything for a while. So let's just kind of go through this. So what we'll say is, okay, I'm going to type in, I'm not going to type all this in just for time, but I'm going to say, okay, let's trigger an evaluation on my project, FBS, which you can see is right here. My stage, which Andy pointed out is quality gate stage. And I ran this on my revenue search, so I don't really have to type this back in. So this is my service that I want to trigger an evaluation on, is revenue search. So I have a time frame here of 73 minutes, and I do that because each one of my tests I run for an hour. So with ramp up times and ramp down times, it usually comes out to about 73, 74 minutes. So I just do a 73-minute time frame. And I'm going to say, okay, let's start this evaluation today. So what is today? The 21st, 9/21, and I ran this at 7:14 my local time, but Keptn uses like universal time, so I know that I'm 5 hours behind universal time. So that would be at 12:14, and then I have these labels that I can put in. So like I said, you can put release names, you can put dates, right? So I'm going to call this one, we'll just call it KUG, Keptn User Group. And then all I have to do is click enter, and now my evaluation is done, right? So you can see it took, just talking through that, it took maybe, what, a minute to do, but without talking through all this, I mean, I could have done this in about 20 seconds, right? So what I'll do is I'll come in and refresh this page, and hopefully, powers to be, we'll see KUG. And here it is, KUG. So here's our evaluation for this test run. You can see I've put in a couple new dashboards since my last run. But we got a score of 97. So I can say, okay, hey, this test run was better than the previous test run of 90, which is better than this one. So this is my best test run yet. We do have a failing score here of memory, JVM memory use. So my memory is way out of whack here, so it failed it. So it gave me a failing score of 0, but calculated everything else based on weight as passing. So yeah, so everything looks good. So that's how quickly you can trigger an evaluation, and you're going to save a lot of time. So the hardest part about probably this whole process is if you're kind of like my company, we don't have like, nobody has ever kind of sat down and say, okay, these are our SLIs. We don't have SLOs just because we're kind of a non-for-profit. But I think a lot of companies kind of miss that step, say, okay, these are our SLIs for each of our windows. So we have to go back through Dynatrace and kind of look, okay, over the last, I don't know, however many days or months, what are our average response times? What are our 90th percentile response times? What are we gonna add as our SLIs? What should our SLIs be, or our SLOs be? And then build out these dashboards. This is the longest part of this project, right? Is building out these dashboards, building them out correctly with all your KPIs. Like you said, we started this a few months ago. I've had a ton of projects that I've been doing, so I haven't built all these dashboards out like I want to, but anytime I get like 15 or 20 minutes, you know, I'm putting more tiles in because I don't have all my KPIs defined in here yet. So I still want to look at, you know, database times. I want to look at how many statements I'm sending to the database, right? Because I don't want one of my releases to be to send like 1,000 more database requests, and that's, you know, that way we could say, oh gosh, we've introduced an N+1 problem somewhere, right? So I'm still building out these dashboards, but once you have them built out like you want them, clone them, right, and then just reconfigure them for your next test, and that's how I've been doing this. So yeah.
Nice. Hey, Mike, a couple of quick questions. You showed that you were triggering the evaluation from your command line interface, right? That's one option. You can say,
Yeah.
I want Keptn to now look at this dashboard for me because I know exactly the time frame. You did a start time and then a time frame setting. You can also do start and end time if you know exactly when they started, when the test started, when it ended. Now, what I would assume as a next step, you would then trigger this fully automatically from the script that you use that triggers your Loadrunner scripts, correct? I mean, how do you trigger Loadrunner?
So I just manually trigger Loadrunner. So I'm actually using StormRunner. So what I do is I schedule scripts out based on the days that teams want them scheduled. So for me, it's pretty easy, just because I'm in StormRunner and it's easy to manually schedule them. But yeah, so next steps are to get this into a pipeline like a Jenkins or whatever. Have Jenkins automatically kick off my scripts, and then hopefully use that to automatically kick off these evaluations. So that's down the line, right? Like I said, I'm in middle of a huge project, so kind of doing those things right now is not a luxury for me. But it will be hopefully, in the next 3 or 4 months, I'll start building that out. That was one of my goals this year. But things get pushed back, and then so I'm still manually kind of just triggering evaluations. But even trigger them manually, it's still only a couple seconds for me, so it's a lot better than what it used to be.
I don't know Loadrunner or StormRunner as well as I know some other products I work with, but in case StormRunner has the option at the end of the test to trigger, let's say, an API call, you could even from StormRunner, once the test is done, just make an API call to your Keptn instance and then just fire it off automatically, right? There's different options how you can do it.
Yeah, and I think that's available through StormRunner. It's just like I said at the beginning, I'm not 1,000% technical. I consider myself a Google developer, but yeah, so that's something that I'll research and we'll get going. Hopefully December timeframe, I'll have some time free, and then I can start working on that stuff.
Perfect. Then I think there was one question that came in, but I guess you answered it. The question was, from a Loadrunner perspective, are you using Loadrunner on-premise or are you using Loadrunner Cloud? So the Cloud Runner SaaS, I guess StormRunner is exactly that, Cloud Runner.
Yeah, so we're using StormRunner right now. So StormRunner, I was kind of skeptical of at first, but yeah, it's been an easy transition thing. I like it a lot better now. It's still the same, you're still writing in Vuegen and like all your analysis and the way you can kick off scripts all in StormRunner. So yeah, and it integrates great with Dynatrace. And Keptn and Cloud Automation. So
and you also, kind of the follow-up question was that whether you then use the Loadrunner API to pull in the load test results, but in this case, you are integrating your Loadrunner script with Dynatrace, so Dynatrace can actually calculate all of your metrics based on test steps in Dynatrace, and then Keptn is just taking the Dynatrace metrics for you into consideration here.
That's correct. Yeah, through my request attributes and everything like that. But yeah, I am using the Dynatrace API to inject into StormRunner as well. So yeah, I'm doing it both ways. So that way I can see Dynatrace metrics when I'm running StormRunner, and then but I mostly 90% of the time use Dynatrace for pretty much everything.
Very good.
And
then
we can, just cycle through a couple other test runs so you can see kind of like what the heat maps look like. So it's really visually stimulating. I mean, you can quickly see like what test runs have failed and why. And like I said, you can see this one was all green. This one failed due to maybe CPU time, and then that's when we noticed, the way we were capturing data is different. So yeah, it's a quick visual indicator of how our scripts are performing.
And then just a clarifying question. So that means the way you structured it is really on the left side, like education transcript, producer license, case search. These are all your test scenarios that you have, correct?
These are all my test scenarios, correct? Mm-hmm. Yep.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. And then the projects you have in Keptn, the SBS and the others, are then these are different applications?
Yep, these are different, all my different applications that I'm testing. Like I said, I have about 80 of them. So I've only been able to work with about 3 of them right now, trying to get Keptn going. But yeah, these are all the different applications. These are all my different applications that I'm working with. Yep, exactly.
Nice.
So I have one here. I just built this dashboard like before I went on vacation. So I haven't really done an evaluation on this one. I've done one eval. I did run a script this morning. Let's just see. Let's just go in here and just trigger an eval on this guy, because I think it's done. So what time did I start this? At 8. So universal time, it'd be like 13, 8. Let's go back in here. 8 what? 8:35. So 13:35. So let's see what happens. Let's just trigger an evaluation and we can see how quickly we can do this. So here's my trigger evaluation. So I got to change my project now. I got to change it to my project name is Vision. So my stage is still going to be Quality Gate. So we're going to change this name to search. User search. Today at 13:35, and then let's just label it Keptn user group. There, my evaluation is done. Just refresh this, and here it is, right here. Cool. So now we got a 94 score. So we've kind of, our memory has come down a little bit, right? So now our memory is at a warning and not a fail this time. So then it's probably using more memory here on this last eval. And since I ran it this morning at 8 o'clock, there's probably not a lot of people on. Came down, got a warning score of 2.78 instead of a failing score of 0. So now we're at a pass instead of a warning result. So yeah, it's quick and easy. I love it. It's amazing. Like I said, just once you've built your dashboards and they're robust and they have all your KPIs, man, sky's the limit, right? I mean, your evals are going to go down. How long did that eval take me? 30 seconds, 45 seconds? So instead of hour or 2 hours, I mean, if something goes wrong, of course, you're really going to have to dig in and start looking. But if everything comes up like this, then you just send this to your project team, say, hey, we got a passing score of 94. We're ready to move on to the next stage, right?
Yeah, and if you think about it, right, I mean, the magic behind this is that you as a performance engineer, you build these dashboards, you know your apps, you know your metrics, because you know how your apps should behave. If you have then built them, you can then take it and really shift it even further left into your pipeline, so that every time your developers commit, a build is being triggered, a test is executed, and then they automatically get feedback. And hopefully in 99% of the cases, everything comes back green, which is great because you just saved so much time in otherwise analyzing all these results. And in the 1% where it fails, you then know where you have the regression, and then you dig into the details by looking at the dashboard or whatever then you do.
Exactly. I think shifting left is going to be a big part of our process, especially in our cloud migration. I think the more we can shift left, the better our quality is going to be overall.
Yeah.
And this is going to help us do that.
Yeah. I want to put one more thought in your brain though. While this is great for the performance analysis and the shift left, also think about that once this version gets deployed into production, you can also use the same approach to do production deployment validation, because I assume, Mike, you have teams that then deploy into prod and then they sit there and validate, did the production deployment go well, yes or no? And I would assume they look at similar metrics, right?
Yep. So yeah, this is going to help. This is just going to help every team down the line for sure.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yep.
Good. Mike, can you flip quickly back to the slides to kind of close it up?
Yeah, let's see if I can get there.
Because I think you had, just as a reference,
from
current slide, exactly.
Yeah, so we saw it live. Bear with me here. Let's go to the next slide here. Maybe.
Let's see if the gods of the internet are with us today.
Yeah, hey, we'll get it, right? We made it this far. Here we go.
Exactly.
Went over some kind of best practices. You know, how we analyze test steps, how we use Keptn to like configure, how to look at our build configurations, right? And Andy gave us a good idea of maybe we should build a dashboard to have all of our configuration settings. We'll run that first to make sure everything's cool, validate it, and then kick off our script. So yeah, that was a good lesson learned there. Let's see here. We're too far away, Andy. This is too slow.
It's okay.
They don't want to travel nice.
Yeah.
They don't want to travel nice.
Yeah, I'm sure
it will put it on a plane.
Yeah, it will switch to the next slide eventually. There's one more thing we wanted to show you, right? If
put on a jet plane.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's another thing. Let's see if we can get to this slide here. Hold on a second. I think the next slide we're going to show is kind of how we're trying to make improvements to the layout of Keptn and stuff like that. So
there we go.
Here we go. So yeah, so I'll let you talk about this a little bit if you want.
Yeah. So the great thing about having people in the Keptn community like Mike is that we get a lot of feedback on how we can make the life of people even easier. And I think one of the things you gave is, hey, you would like to see a quick overview, not only of your last test run, but also kind of a quick historical overview instead of always having to go into the heat map. But this is something that the team is already addressing. This is a mock-up from Johannes, who is the kind of the leading PM on the Keptn open source project. So things like this are coming. Also, what you pointed out several times, and we experienced it all, some of the annoying refreshes, they will be gone. They are already gone in the Keptn 0.9 release, and 0.9.1, I think, was just released last night. That will also then make it to the cloud automation instances. That means cloud automation is the managed offering we have as Dynatrace. So Mike, soon for you, the refreshes will also go away. So that's going to be good. But it's just amazing that you are doing all this collaboration. Yeah, it's great that you're doing this. And then I want to give a quick shout out. I was initially writing a lot of the integrations with from Keptn to Dynatrace, the dashboard parsing. And when I built it about a year ago, I did my best to come to a quick result, but I'm definitely sure that I didn't build the best code. And we have a new team that took over now this integration, and they've now refactored everything. They increased a lot of the quality aspects. I don't want to say the bugs that are left behind, but I want to say a quick thank you to Andreas Grimmer, to Arthur, who have been instrumental for this, and some other people behind the scenes. We're also going to work with some of the new dashboard capabilities in Dynatrace. So the new Data Explorer will be fully supported very soon, where you have the pass and warning kind of as a tile, like as a text, but you will then be able to also use the nice color coding sequences in the chart itself to define your thresholds. So more things are coming. And that's also thanks to you and a lot of people behind the scenes that are working on this. Yeah. And with this, I wanted to say thanks, Mike. And I think there's Mark Tomlinson is on the call. Les is on the call. Yeah, no.
I know. I've met him at Perform. Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy. Yeah, I like Mark.
He likes what.
That's intimidating because he knows way more than I do about performance engineering and all this. So hopefully he liked it, and yeah, hopefully we can meet up and talk about it more at Perform next year.
Yeah, I hope so too. Well, with this, I want to say thanks again. All of this has been recorded. We'll do some post-processing, and then we'll put it up on the YouTube channel. It may happen next week because I'm relying here a little bit on Jürgen, who is doing all the magic work behind the scenes. And this week he's enjoying a little time off because he's building a house, and that's getting into the final stages, and he needs to be making sure that the house gets built correctly. So maybe it takes a day or two until it gets up there. But thank you. Stay safe. Hope to see all of you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye, everybody. See ya.